All right, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you all had a good lunch. It seems like we lost a lot of people. As we all know, I think this is a difficult time of the usual conference timing right after lunch. So I'm very glad that we have interesting presentations coming up talking about digital citizenship and the work in the countries. So this is very specific to the countries, very hopefully relevant to each of you. Feel free to write down your questions, and the format for this session will be a bit different. We will leave the questions and answers to the end of the session. So there will be 3 presentations. The first will be from Vietnam, the second will be from Bhutan, and the third one will be from Bangladesh. And then there will be a 30-minute panel discussion to sort of bring together some ideas, and then we will have a Q&A. So hopefully it will be a very fruitful session. And without further ado, I will introduce my Vietnamese friend, Dr. Duc Lan, who's the head of office of the National Center for Sustainable Development, the Vietnam National Institute for Educational Sciences. Yes, very long name. Ministry of Education, under the Ministry of Education and Training. We've worked closely together for a number of years already, so I'm very happy to welcome him here to share the great work that Vietnam has been doing so far and in the future. So with a round of applause, please, for Dr. Lan.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and all distinguished guests, educators from many countries. And I hope that my presentation would not bore you in this afternoon. Thank you for a very kind introduction from my friend from UNESCO Bangkok, Jian Teng. This is not the first time for me to have a collaboration working with UNESCO. We have built up our relationship for more than a year. So thank you for Dr. Jean Park, Mr. Tien, and also UNESCO Bangkok for inviting Vietnam National Research Team to join in DCAP project. And this is a great opportunity not only for our institute, but also for the Ministry of Education to collect one of the most valuable data of the Vietnamese students' ICT skills or digital skills. So in my presentation, I would like to give you very highlights of the Vietnamese educational context in ICT education and also ICT skills of Vietnamese students. Let me talk with you about some information about the Vietnamese education system first. And also I would like to give you some numbers of our education. You know that in Vietnam, the whole population of the country is about 95 million people. And the country is not a big country with a size of just about 330,000 square kilometers. And in our country, there are 63 provinces, and we divide the country into 6 different parts of the region because of the climate and also because of the economic status. So that is the numbers in 2017 and 2018 is quite small and you cannot read, but I can give you, this is a bigger one. For the whole number of the students and pupils in Vietnam, there are about 23 million students and pupils. And they are located in the different levels. Like in kindergarten, we have about 5,360,000 kids. For primary school, in school year 2019, we have about 8,300,000 59,000 students. For lower secondary, we have about 5.6 million, and for the upper secondary, we have 2.5 million people. And in the last slide, we also have the number of the higher education is about 1.8 million students. And now that number is increased to about 1.950,000 people. It's about near 2 million students in higher education. And with the big number like this, what the government did and what did the government try to have the ICT education to have the national policies for the ICT education. First, about 10 years ago, the government in Vietnam, we have the very clear understanding that in the near future, we need to build a society based on the modern technology. So that's why we have the national strategy of transforming Vietnam into advanced ICT country. That is under the ministry decision in 2010. And we hope that our country should implement that decision in 2030, 2025, 2030. And for education, we hope that we will have the national strategy for IT. But one of the reasons why up to now, we did once have the master plan for ICT education in 2001 and 2005. But from 2005 up to now, we have not published any other master plan in ICT education. So that's why yesterday I asked Dr. Jian about how should we have the support from UNESCO Bangkok to maybe to have the consultancy to the Vietnamese Ministry of Education to have other master plan in the near future. We also have the very clear strategy for applying ICT in the classroom to apply the ICT to meet the demand, new demand of the learners in the digital society. But that is just, they are just about the documents. And now we have to try our best to turn all the documents into the practice. One of the very, very big projects that was released by the Prime Minister in 2017, 2 years ago, that is about one of the biggest projects in ICT education now for the other level of the government. That is about the project for the 2016 to 2020 for strengthening the application of IT and management and supporting teaching and learning into the classroom from the macro level to micro level. Thanks to this project, we will have some initiatives which are applied by not only for Department of ICT Department of Ministry, but also for the companies. And also there are quite a lot of other documents. I don't want to talk so much about documents, but in Vietnam we have the system like every year the Ministry of Education will release one guidelines or one direction for all schools in Vietnam about how to apply ICT in teaching and in learning. I would like to talk for the last one, that is circular number 32 that was approved by the Parliament and also the Ministry of Education. We are going to implement the new general education curriculum from 2020 to 2025. For next year, we are going to change the textbook for the grade 1, and 2021 we will change the textbook for grade 2 and grade 6, and after that, grade 3, grade 7, and grade 10. And until 2025, we are going to apply the all new textbook for the O levels from the grade 1 to grade 12. And also, I'm sorry, a lot of other informations. Wait a minute. But let me talk about a little bit about the digital citizenship in schools in Vietnam. In Vietnam now, it's quite happy to announce you that all Vietnamese schools are connected to the internet, and we have about 85 schools have been connected to fiber internet with the broadband. So that means Vietnamese students, according to also to report of the DCAP project, Vietnamese students also approach to the internet in school easily. But the thing is, how can they use internet to have the learning materials for their lessons? That is another issue. But we are quite okay with the internet connection. And for the current curriculum, one of the problems is our informatics subject is not the compulsory subject. So according to one of the last report of the Ministry of Education, there were just about 28% of the students in secondary school who chose informatics subjects as a, as a subject in the school. So that's why the digital citizenship is was not proposed as maybe the vital learning in school in our current curriculum. But it is quite, I think that is a good news for all of us that informatics subject will be a compulsory subject in the new curriculum from 2020, from grade 3. And computer science is introduced as a very vital part in high school curriculum. And with the new curriculum, Vietnamese government, Vietnamese educators, we have the very focus on ICT education. So that's why in all of the conferences and workshops, the ICT educators always emphasize and also encourage all others, policymakers, try to embed ICT as a compulsory subject from primary school. But there's also the limitation that is informatics is not for the test to go to university. So that is the issue. We think is in the future there will be more university who accept the ICT's scores or ICT subjects as for their entrance exam to the university. And like I mentioned before, according to the national policies, the government and the ministry have released quite a lot of documents. But the fact that we also need from the initiatives with the ICT companies, ICT organizations, non-profit organizations. So this is one of the very big cooperation between Department of Information Technology of Ministry of Education and the company named Vietnet ICT. This company has a very strong cooperation with the Ministry of Vietnam to support, to implement the project I mentioned before. And they also developed a lot of programs for the disadvantaged area, or we can say that is the rural areas of 12 provinces since 2016. And for that programs apply informatics and computer science. and also the internet safety was introduced as a learning materials. And more than 100,000 students in the rural areas approached the program. Also, other organizations like Microsoft, they also cooperated with the Department of IT and also Vietnet ICT. They organized the series of the what we call is the Hour of Code, and that was firstly introduced in 2018 at the national level with more than 1,036 students involved and participated. The students learn how to code in 1 hour. And also with the other organizations from Sweden, SecDep Foundation also supported a lot of initiatives about digital cities and also digital entrepreneurship. What I want to focus on the next slide, that is about the DCAP, the Digital Kids Asia Pacific, which is supported by UNESCO Bangkok. And VNIAS, our institute, was the focal point to conduct, to implement the project in Vietnam. And we did a survey in different provinces in Vietnam. We have 6 different provinces. This is the Lao Cai province. It's located near the common border with China, where there are a number, about 50% of students are minority, ethnic minority people. And that is the capital of Vietnam, Hanoi, and the central Vietnam, Da Nang. That is in the Central Highlands, Lâm Đồng province, and in Cần Thơ, that is in the south. We randomly selected 20 schools belonging to 5 different provinces. And for that one, we have the very valuable data set of 1,061 students at the age of 15 over in Vietnam. And we have the initial findings of the indicators impacting ICT skills, and also we have the scores of the different 5 domains of the digital competencies. I will show you at the next slide. And it is also very important for us because that is a very reliable instrument. And we hope that we can use the instrument of DCAP to have the larger assessment for other provinces. And for our national team, research team, we are convincing, we try to convince the Ministry of Education to support us to have some assessment online for other 6 provinces of the grade 9 next year, and also to expand it for the grade 12. We hope that we can have other findings and also other numbers to show you later, maybe next year or next juniors. And please have a look at the result of the survey. Comparing to other countries participating in the survey, Korea, Fiji, Bangladesh, Vietnam has I think it's a okay number, but I think it's more important to know what is the current situation of the digital competencies of Vietnamese students, and what is the weakness and what is the strength of our students, not only for the comparing with other countries. So we have the quite high scores at 2 domains, the domain of digital safety and resilience. Digital literacy, we are also quite good. But the fact that we have 2 domains are very low, that is a digital emotional intelligence and digital creativity. We have, I think it's one of the very low number is about just 2.7 out of 4 point, like a scale. So what does it mean? For example, like one of the reasons why we try to discover why this domain we are quite low, and also that is the lowest domain comparing to 4 other domains. I think there are several reasons for it. But one of the reasons is the curriculum is not, I think it's not good enough. Because the curriculum, in Vietnam, we start teaching the students for the coding from the grade 7s for several programming language. For example, like very old language like Pascal. And the students, they are quite bored of learning the very old language. And they also don't want to apply the language into the designing the blogs, or maybe something is like the website or something like this. And also other reason is the ICT subjects is not strongly considered as an important subject in school. They are not encouraged in school. So that's why, according to the statistics of the DCAP project, we have the number of the teachers. There are just about 22% of the teachers who, there are just 22% of students who answer the survey. They answer that 22% they learned how to connect to the internet from the teachers, and how to learn computers from the teachers. Less than 30%. Most of them they learn for themselves and their friends. So that is also the very, very key issue. We have to think how to develop the good e-learning materials or e-learning programs in school to support the students. That is about the different numbers of the different scores of all the domains are recorded into the report. And the last slide, I would like to mention about what do we need to do to improve our digital citizenship, to enhance digital citizenship in Vietnamese educational context. I think we need more and more initiatives, need more and more collaboration from both state and also private holders, state and private institutions, to work together to develop the students' digital skills. And one of the things I would like to say about the teachers, the teaching methods in school. In all of the sessions we attended for the EduTech since yesterday, we thought that the role of the teachers should be changed. The teachers should be the facilitators for students, not just only the people who transfer the knowledge to the students. And we need to have a very, very rapid change of assessment and testing. In our system, we just test several subjects to give them the score for applying to universities, such as mathematics, chemistry, science, English, literature. IT subject is not mentioned as one of the key subjects for high school students. So that's why in school, the awareness, the perceptions of the principals, of the teachers, sometimes they are not very keen on supporting the children to study ICT and also digital skills. And for the perspective of the researchers, I think there need be more and more studies on ICT skills at all ages. And for example, like this is the very first time for us to have the first data set of the ICT skill of the students aging 15. But we hope that in near future, in 2 or 3 years, we can expand the DCAP project for having larger data. And we also can conduct some national assessment on the teachers' ICT, or maybe the teachers' support to the digital citizenship in schools. So thank you very much. So I would like to thanks again to Jean and Jian for this presentation and this support to Vietnamese national team. And I hope that I will receive a lot of questions from you, but because I have another session, I have to move, so you can email to me, and also, or maybe can give me the questions to the email, or maybe contact with me later. So thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Lan, for that presentation. Let's move on to the next presentation from Bhutan. I would like to welcome Mr. Ugyen Dorji, who is the chief of the Instructional Media Division of the Royal Educational Council in Bhutan, to share Bhutan's experience and insights into relating to digital citizenship. Thank you. Up to you.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you, Jian, for introducing me. I work in the Instructional Media Division. A little bit of background on that. Basically, the organization that I'm working for, the Royal Education Council, is an organization looking after the development of school curriculum across the country. So, and then under that, the Instructional Media Division, which I look after, it basically looks at developing the instructional materials, interactive materials such as digital textbooks and other learning materials based on ICT. A little bit of background on, before I go into the talk about the situation of digital citizenship in Bhutan, some information on how much of social engagement is happening, at the moment. If you look at the number is amazing. I mean, in terms of number, there's quite a lot of social engagement. Now, the reason for showing that is now that having a lot of social engagement, it also, provides that opportunities and risk. These are some of the few examples. For example, if you look at some of the examples like posting photos of family trip, it's an online activity. You can do an online activity, but the opportunity of that is actually you get to, connect with your family members. But what about the other side? On the flip side, you have the danger of identity theft. So when you talk about digital citizenship, it is not always about the risk. There are both opportunities and risk. So these are some of the examples of how digital citizenship is not only about risk, but it's about both opportunities and risk. Now with that as a sort of a context, now let me move into the current situation of digital citizenship in Bhutan. Now the elements, the photos that I've taken is based on some of the digital citizenship, the 9 elements of digital citizenship that I read online. So this really doesn't tally one-to-one with the DCAP domains. But I have tried to match with some of the domains and the elements here. The first one is digital literacy. Now, in terms of these elements and in terms of that domain in the DCAP, what are we doing? Currently, we have just rolled out the new ICT curriculum from grades 4 to 10. It is a compulsory subject that all the students have to go through, and we've started rolling that in 2017. Something different here, a little bit of a departure from the earlier curriculum is that earlier curriculum was very much focused on providing information. But what we're trying to do now is we're trying to focus more on the outcomes. What can they do? What are they competent of doing? So we're trying to move towards that. And there are other specific, focus like, focus on the digital citizenship, which I'll talk later on. But that is the situation. Now the other situation of that is that we could not roll this out in all the schools. Definitely one reason is because of the infrastructure. So we could not roll out to all the schools. So that is creating some sort of a digital divide in the country. On the second part, on the digital safety and resilience, again, that component, we have tried to capture that in the new ICT curriculum. The only concern with that is now that would be available only to the students who are actually undergoing this new ICT curriculum. What about those section of students who because of the digital divide created earlier by the infrastructure, so they would be left out. So that is a concern that we have to work towards resolving. The other one is the digital participation. Again, when it comes to digital participation, we have in the new ICT curriculum, we have a theme called communication and collaboration. So we try to bring that component through that theme and what we call a strand in the new ICT curriculum. But again, the concern would be not all the schools have good facilities like a good internet connection, and even in some schools where they have good internet connection, it's not reliable. So that is creating some sort of an issue. And other thing is having communication and collaboration in new ICT curriculum is one thing, but how do they use it on a daily basis? So that is something that we have to again work towards achieving. The other one is the digital creativity and innovation. This part is not really fully captured in the new ICT curriculum, but so far what we have been doing is we've been working towards fulfilling these components through co-curricular activity. We have something called National STEM Olympiad. So in the National STEM Olympiad, quite recently we had one where they had to do this robotic challenges, and then the students have to actually code. So they have learned about the coding in the school curriculum, but now they are applying the coding in actually making the robots do something. So students are so excited in doing that, and then we think that is a move towards promoting creativity and innovation. The other one is we are also trying to organize this digital artifact competition. So what they have to do is they have to apply the skills which they have learned within the classroom and then use it in a new context. So this is the current situation that in the area of digital citizenship in Bhutan. Now I have explained a little bit of how things are and what are some of the concerns. Now, how do we achieve and how do we move towards achieving these? So, from our point, we look at these four areas. We think these are the four key drivers for change. One are the policy, one are the training, access, and curriculum. Quickly going through this policy. In terms of policy, we don't have a national ICT policy as such, but what we have is we have an education ICT master plan, which actually guides, the ICT initiatives in the education field. So the whole purpose of this education ICT master plan, which my colleague would be, presenting later on, is actually it creates provides a roadmap for implementation. The other one is we have so many initiatives going on, but how do you streamline and how do you bring them together? So that whole purpose of education ICT master plan is that. The reason why I bring this here is because under this education ICT master plan, we have a three-component, three thrust areas: I-Able, I-Built, and I-Connect. Something went wrong with the font, so I think it's messed up. What would be, important here is the focus on the I-Able. The I-Able is actually looking at, there are some projects under I-Able which are focused on achieving the digital citizenship and promoting the digital citizenship in education. Now, I-Build is focusing basically on building the resources, and I-Connect on the infrastructure and access. Now, the second key driver is the curriculum. I already mentioned about how they are linked, the digital citizenship, how is it linked in the curriculum. I talked about there was a new ICT curriculum. In the new ICT curriculum, we have 4 theme areas. So first one is technology operation concept, communication collaboration, digital citizenship, and computational thinking. So this is the one area that would help in addressing the digital citizenship and promoting that in the education. So because it is an important theme in the new ICT curriculum, we feel that this would actually help address the digital citizenship in the education. The other area under the curriculum is the non-formal sector. We often talk about the ICT, promoting digital citizenship in the formal school structure. But what about the non-formal? What about those which are outside of the formal school curriculum? So in the new ICT, in the new master plan, this is one project that we are focusing on, targeting the non-formal education learners. And the other area that we think we have just started to integrate ICT across the curriculum, we feel that by integrating ICT across the curriculum, there's an opportunity for us to actually promote digital citizenship in other subjects, not just specific to the ICT curriculum. The other key driver is the training. Now, in the new ICT master plan, we are focusing on how do we, because in the context of Bhutan, the pre-service is not really part of the Ministry of Education. It is outside of the Ministry of Education. It's under the Royal University of Bhutan. So now we need to work together because in the field, we can train the in-service teachers, but what about the teachers who are coming out from the pre-service school, training colleges? So through this master plan, what we are trying to do is we are working together with them so that they're reviewing the module, the digital pedagogy module in the pre-service college, and through that we hope to actually impart the component of digital citizenship in the pre-service training colleges. The other project that we are targeting is digital citizenship. Is actually we have something called digital literacy program in the ICT master plan, which is aimed at providing the digital citizenship concepts and values to parents and students. Now, having access is one. Directly looking at it, may seem like that access may not, help directly with the provision of, or promotion of digital citizenship in the education. But I think in one of the sessions yesterday, I think one of the presenters talked about, how access is the fundamental. It's the foundation for everything related to ICT in education. So we believe that access is important in promoting. Now, if you look at some of the components of digital citizenship, one of the elements is digital literacy and digital participation. So we feel that in order to promote digital citizenship, devices are important. So for that, connectivity and bandwidth is, these are important. And of course, we need to improve access to teaching and learning devices. And then eventually, one area that we're working on is setting up the e-learning platform. It's a learning management system that we are trying to set up. Now, some of the challenges, broad challenges, in the beginning, I mentioned a little bit about this. The first one is need for clear understanding of digital citizenship scenario in the schools. This is something that we haven't really actually, we haven't conducted any kind of research on this. But thanks to the UNESCO, so we have just taken, as a project in the DCAP project. So we'll be working on this, and then through this, we hope to get some sort of data which will help us, guide, provide some sort of direction in how should the curriculum be changed and what area needs to be improved in terms of teacher training, curriculum, and things like that. The other challenge is, like when we talk about digital citizenship, basically everyone talks about providing the advocacy and public awareness. Now this is, in terms of saying it is easy, but generally when it comes to advocacy and awareness, it takes a long time to actually bring about change. So this is something we feel that is something that will take time. The other one again is mentioned in the morning session. Keeping pace with the technology is one. Because the technology is emerging and evolving every time. But how do you keep pace with technology? The content that you have created now may be outdated. So that is going to be a challenge. And in the context of Bhutan, we feel that probably this would be important, need for digital or cyber law. In our country, we don't have a law related to the digital, cyber law. By having it here, it may seem strange that law is more about penalizing. But the way we look at it is not from that angle, but more from how do you deter someone from going into risks related to the digital being online. So from that angle, feel that there's need for something like this. So the opportunity, and then one example, a good example is being here. We get to hear from so many countries who have actually implemented, different ICT projects to promote and resolve digital citizenship. So, and having regional forum like this actually helps because you get to understand the best practices and solutions that they come, and then we will be able to take back that home. The other one I have already mentioned about, this DCAP, Digital Kids Asia Pacific project that we're working on, which is basically looking at, what children are actually doing, thinking, and feeling. So both in classroom and at home. And the benefit of that would be we hope to get some sort of direction and pointer, and where should we be heading next. The other thing, again, I mentioned in the beginning, would be to adopt some sort of multi-pronged strategy, because government alone cannot do, address the digital citizenship issues. We might have to work with the, reflecting back on some of the examples shared in Korea, working with the NGOs and the small, even from examples from Singapore. So we might have to work with different organizations and agencies who are, related to this. So in this context, what we are doing is, for this DCAP, we are working together with the Department of IT and Telecom. They're also trying to actually conduct a survey on internet usage, and we thought that there's a good convergence. So why don't we come together and then work towards, The benefit of this is we also actually bring them on board. So in the end, so it becomes a, whole, concerted approach in actually fulfilling the digital citizenship. The other one is the National Commission for Women and Children, because child safety is their priority, but how do we bring them together? So we are also trying to work together with them. And then we have another department, Department of Information and Media. Their basic mandate is to actually promote public awareness and advocacy. So bringing them on board, we hope to actually, increase the public awareness and advocacy. So that's all from Bhutan. Thank you. Kamsahamnida.
Thank you so much, Ugyen, for that very systematic and detailed presentation, highlighting Bhutan's journey, I think, to supporting digital citizenship in a better way for the future. So let me move on to learning more about Bangladesh's journey. And I would like to invite Dr. Mohammad Abdul Mannan, who has worked with us extensively, has been a great partner with our projects, and also initiating their own activities in support of Bangladesh students under the Directorate of Secondary and Higher Education. So may I invite Dr. Mannan to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear colleagues. And I'm very much nervous because my English is very bad, and if you doesn't understand me, it's not my problem. And yes, I'm sorry that my presentation was developed by my colleague, and he was also very busy. And so next time, when I visit my presentation, my sister said there is many problem, language problem, and she is the student of a grade level 11, and she finally checked the language. And some digit I does not read out, and my son said me that is a big digit, so how to read out, I suggest you how to read it, and a small paper here he provided me. So my sister and, my daughter and my son helped to develop this presentation, and also my colleague, and I'm none. So, do you see, can you see Bangladesh? It's a very small country, and three sides of the Bangladesh bordering by India, and you understand that India is our close relative. And rest of the northern side, Myanmar, a little bit side of the northern country of the northern, there is Myanmar. They are also our relative, and they push our country many guests, you know. And rest of the northern side, Bay of Bangla, it's our heart, it's our darling, Bay of Bangla. And you know that 13,000 rivers in Bangladesh, they come from India, and they like our country, and they are very much happy, and they meet to Bay of Bengal. So this country is said country of rivers. And the population size, the country is very little, but population is 162.7 million. So don't invite us. It's very harmful to you. And this is the big digit numbers where my son was helped me. The type of institution, institutions number, teachers number, and students number. First primary, and there is almost 130,000 institutions. And teachers is almost 624,000, and students is more than 17 million. And in secondary education, the number of institution is almost 20. Is it working? Okay. The number of institution, 20,000 almost, and the teachers of the number of the teachers is 244,000, and the students is almost 10 million. And number of college is 400. Please read out, anyone? I can't. And number of teachers is almost 121,000, and the number of students is almost 3.9 million. This is the total number here is. So it's a huge population, you know. If we take any decision, we have 10 times think about it. And that is the policy, and I was closely involved when the National Education Policy 2010 was developed it was published in 2011, and it's the first education policy in Bangladesh. Before that, there was many education policy, but political restlessness and other causes, education policy was not implemented in Bangladesh, but this is the first education policy. Its name Education Policy 2010, and there is many instruction about the e-learning. And you know that when this government come from 2009, they have a slogan, Digital Bangladesh, in 2009. And in our country, educational administration is fully digitalized. Student admission, students' result, and especially in the college and the university, all students are their examination, their admission, their result, everything is digitally completed. And there is another ICT Education Master Plan 2011 to 2021. It's very much available in Bangla and English version. And National ICT Policy 2018, just last year it was developed. It is also, English version is available. Cyber security strategy. This is developed just current year, and draft Digital Security Act, and it is almost developed, almost finalized, and anti-bullying policy is also developed, and so many initiative is taken by the government. And this is the scenario of internet subscribers, and mobile internet subscribers 90.409 million, and WiMAX is 0.005 million, ISP and PSTN 5.734 million, and total number is 96.199 million. Use of the ICT in education. You know that most of the schools, our government try to introduce the multimedia classroom, and most of the schools, they have multimedia classroom, 1 classroom or 2 classroom or 3 classroom in a school, and this number is 35,000, almost. But you know that there is many problem. Multimedia classroom is not functioning somewhere properly. There is many reasons. And teachers portal, primary and secondary teachers developed, they have developed a portal, and they share among themselves. E-books, electronic version of textbooks have been published, and this was published from 2011. And you know, before 2011, there is a subject that's called computer science in grade level 9 and 10. But after 2012, computer science is compulsory for grade level 6 to grade level 11 and 12. And this subject name is ICT. So every student somehow very much well known about the ICT skills, but problem is teacher also. And another, this is very famous in our country, and Muktopata, it's a e-learning platform, and teachers and students are very much access here, especially digital content. Everybody upload the digital content in this Muktopata portal, and it is very famous in our country. And you know that in 2012, there was developed a new curriculum, and nowadays their curriculum was revised. And objective of the curriculum is opening the door to access the world's knowledge repository by enlightening students about the immense potentials of ICT. Develop a positive attitude towards the ever-changing impact of ICT, supporting students to solve various problems of everyday life using ICT, assisting students enhance their language skills, develop their talent and creativity with the help of ICT. But there is many problems. Just I will mention the problem next. And awareness of the health and safety risks associated with ICT is the objective of our curriculum. This curriculum is started grade level 6 to grade level 11 and 12. Use of the ICT to be reduce unemployment, poverty alleviation, and improving the quality of life, developing collaboration, attitude, and leadership qualities of the students, developing vision for lifelong learning. And you know, there is many problems. First problem is our teaching learning is quite result-based. It's not learning-based. Everybody is very much conscious about result. GPA 5, golden A+. So if we achieve these skills, we have to go to formative assessment, that means continuous assessment. And there is a problem, somebody, especially our academician, they raise some questions, some illegal situation to be grow in the schools if we introduce the formative assessment and the marks would be added of the final exam. There is some questions, but without the continuous assessment, we didn't achieve these skills. So our government tried to introduce the formative assessment in the schools. And you know that education is not always joyful. Education is somehow hard. It's need the anxiety, critical thinking, and time. Always it's not joyful. But funny games, science fiction, and many linkage in the website, in the YouTube, there is enjoyable things. So most of the students are very much favor of this site, not educational side. So it's a, I don't know whether it is the problem of Bangladesh or all over the world, I don't know, but most of the students are very much interested about the funny games, about the science fiction, about the action film. So we have to consider this, the psychology of the students. So yes, we are thinking about this. An objective, yes? Oh, where? Yes. So we have an opportunity to work with the UNESCO Bangkok, and my colleagues are here, and we have a research in our country, and my university colleague, she was the consultant of our project, and she has done the works very smartly. And our journal going to be published, and our education minister will launching this journal. So we are just waiting for her. And digital citizenship key findings from Digital Kids Asia Pacific, and students' capability of using latest digital device is high. Around 80% students know how to use the latest digital device. 69% use digital device in order to search for information and application they needed. Around 40% still do not take proper action or cannot set up safe computing environment, and around 50% do not consult about the safety with others. Girls are using social media less safely and are at more risk. This findings is, I don't know these findings is whether reliable or valid. I don't know, but research finding is, I know most of the girls are very much conscious about the using of ICT, but result is here. 45% answered they are using social media platform, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, LINE, WeChat, to share ideas, participate in discussion, and collaborate with others. In regard to learning the use of computer and uses of internet, the percentage of students who answered they learned from teachers are the highest, because computer ICT subject is compulsory for all students. Over then, 46% of Bangladeshi students believe they learn how to use computer from teachers, and 28% of Bangladeshi students answered that they learn how to use internet from teachers. So this number is not so high. That means students are students learn internet not from the help of teachers, not from the help of their friends or fathers or mothers. They learn how to use internet. They themselves learn how to use internet, how to use ICT. Among the digital device, access to the smartphones is the highest at home. So learning materials accessible from smartphones can be developed to ensure the usage of smartphones for academic purpose. You know that in our schools, students are highly prohibited to use a smartphone. So when the students go to home, they use their father smartphone or mother's smartphone. But in the schools, it is prohibited. Digital citizenship challenge for Bangladesh, and inadequate ICT infrastructure. And you know that in our country, schools are very old, and the classroom size, classroom management, that means chair, table, lecture theater, everything is very old. So this arrangement is not appropriate for the ICT education, so we have to change it. And in this time, schools building are developed in the new architectural views. And rapid changes of technology, that is another problem. And I think this problem is not for the students, it's especially for teachers. Lack of trained teachers to use ICT in pedagogy, that is the problem. Most of the teachers does not know how the ICT linkage with the pedagogy, with the curriculum. So that is the major problem in our country. Proper curriculum for ensuring digital citizenship. But nowadays, we developed a new curriculum to addressing the ICT education. ICT is being used for recreation instead of educational purpose. Earlier, I told about it. And digital citizenship recommendation for Bangladesh policy. And digital citizenship should be addressed in education policy and should be integrated in the curriculum development process. And it's a very high time for us that curriculum is, we have to initiate to develop the curriculum, to revise the curriculum, and we also talk with the personnel of National Curriculum and Textbook Board and also the Ministry of Education. So the findings of the DCAF research, we are very much optimistic that it would be addressed in the new curriculum. Study and research, comparative study needed and on age and grade-based access and usage of ICT and a digital device of student. This can help in identify the varied behaviors of children of different age and grades and their academic and personal need changes. So you know that in our country, research opportunity is very minimum. And in the university, there is also not huge opportunity to research for the social crisis or educational crisis. So nowadays, our government is very much conscious about it. By the research, every problem is identified, and according to the finding of the research, we have to initiative to solve the problem. And grade-based need assessment study can be done before offering ICT course or use of ICT at school. Cybersecurity, gender issues needed to be taught at school, as the study shows both gender are accessing digital device for personal and recreational needs and are exposing to cyber threats and not fully aware of the situation and vulnerability. Okay, digital citizenship recommendation continued, and adequate ICT infrastructure, skills and resource, I already talked about it, and adequate digital skills for teacher. And our government is very much conscious to train up the teachers on the aspect of ICT, and initiatives for reducing students' vulnerability in using ICT. And for that, there is many policies and program taken by our government. And digital citizen recommendation is continued. Partnership, civil societies, private service providers and development partners can come up with more resource and knowledge for building a stronger and wider partnership in this sector, which is in line with education policy and would contribute to fulfill the vision of Digital Bangladesh 2021 and achieving the SDG 4. And mainstreaming and scale up the findings and recommendation of DCAF research. Earlier I told about it. It's a very high time. We'll easily meet the DCAF research in our curriculum, new developed curriculum. And thank you very much.
right, thank you, Dr. Mannan. We are now going to move on to the next part of this session, which is a panel discussion. The purpose of the panel discussion will be to explore more future-oriented issues. So it's not going to be restricted so much to these digital citizenship domains or concepts. It's more about some issues that you may need to consider for the future in your country. So I'm going to invite three distinguished panelists. The first is Professor Hyojong So from Ewha Women's University. She is the Associate Professor of the Department of Educational Technology and also a Director of the Center for Teaching for Excellence in Teaching and Learning. My very excited panelists who are coming up, Professor Lilia Green. She's a professor of communications at the Edith Cowan University in Perth, Western Australia, and Dr. Nabat Chaimongkol from Chulalongkorn University. He's a lecturer and researcher at the Department of Educational Research and Psychology. So a very distinguished panel. And let me take a seat. So let me just briefly introduce Professor So here. She teaches courses in educational technology at the undergraduate and graduate levels. She's also an administrator in the university, so she's the director of the Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning. She supports students and faculty development in terms of improving their learning and teaching competencies, developing and managing online courses, including K-MOOCs, and designing and improving learning environments. She is passionate about extending the learning experience beyond the classroom. Secondly, Professor Lilia Green, as mentioned, she's a professor of communications. She's a leading researcher in the School of Arts and Humanities at Edith Cowan University. She's been supported by over $2 million of Australian Research Council findings and has spent the past 20 years investigating children's and young people's use of digital media. She is passionate about how young people's digital media use can help society address some of the big challenges of our age, such as the climate emergency. Lilia has recently co-edited books on cyberbullying and on children's early years online, newborn to 5 years old, and is currently working on a 50-chapter edited volume of the Routledge Companion to Digital Media and Children. Lastly, but not least, Dr. Nabat Chaimongkol. He's a lecturer and researcher in educational measurement and evaluation. He's also leading the Thailand version, participation of the Digital Kids Asia Pacific research. And he is passionate about inclusive education made possible by the use of technology. So without further ado, I think what we're trying to do here for this session is sort of provide a more future-oriented discussion that is hopefully of interest to you. And what I would like to invite you to do is, to ask questions and to think about the issues that I raised as the discussion is going on, and let us know in the Q&A session after this panel discussion. So let me kick this off by perhaps asking Professor So here, as a professor, as a teacher and educator at Ewha Women's University, I think we've seen a lot of changes, and our policymakers are constantly talking about changes to technology and how that impacts teaching and learning. So what changes do you see in the students of today, and how they themselves view the appropriate use of technology?
Okay, thank you for the question. I think there are many changes, challenges that we face with this new generation of students. But the problem I see is that this group of new students, they use technology a lot, and then so learning technological skills is not really a big problem. But one of the observations that I had is that although they can use technology very well for perhaps the personal activities, they don't really have enough knowledge or skills about how they can use technology for their own learning. So that means they may use mobile phone every day to communicate, but they don't really know how they can use mobile phone to learn. So that's the gap that I see, and that's something that we can do, help them better use this new technology for their personal learning processes.
Thank you. I think Professor Lilia, as well as Dr. Nabat, you yourselves are also, constantly engaging with this generation, right, in the universities. If you can also share maybe some thoughts or insights into the same issue, how they're using technology, any issues in your particular context, that would be really interesting, I think, for the audience to hear about.
Yes, thank you for the question. As now, we also use technology to teach our students because most of our students, they can learn the knowledge by themselves from the online course, something else. So that's why we will blend together from the knowledge that we have and the technology together. It's like our university, we use the online course we call blended learning. We will mix about traditional classroom and use the technology classroom together. And when we will need, we will facilitate them to discuss and use the digital tool. It's like a lot of tool in Mentimeter, or that we use the Kahoot, something else to engage them to study together. We cannot stop them to use this, but we can encourage them to use the technology to make them feel free that they can participate them with us. This is the key idea that we can use the digital to make them learning by themselves.
Thank you. Is this working? Okay. That's okay, I'll use this one. Thank you. So I think I'll move the discussion on a bit, because what we're finding now is that some students are identifying that they don't have the skills they would like to disengage from technology. So we have stopped thinking so much about helping young people develop skills, although coding and such like is really important. And we're beginning to think more about how do we create an environment in which we support technology use in a way that people feel in charge of the technology rather than feeling that the technology is in charge of them. So being able to walk away from an argument that's online, for example, being able to turn off when you're tired rather than just keeping on looking at the feed, not worrying because you haven't had many likes for your most recent post. These are the things that we are asking young people to talk to us about now, and suggest ways in which we can sort of develop a way in which young people feel in charge of technology, and maybe they can help their parents feel in charge of technology too.
Thanks, Lilia. Just to take up that concept of self-control, I think maybe another word might be self-regulation. Lilia mentioned a very interesting concept of digital divide. So usually we think about digital divide in terms of access, quality of access, internet devices. But she mentioned this digital divide in terms of those who feel in control and those who do not. And do you see that is widespread in your sort of research demographic? And what sort of age range? Is this coming down younger and younger? Do you see it with adults as well, who presumably are able to self-regulate better? I think that's a very interesting concept of digital divide, because that's not commonly conceived of. That's not the common understanding of the use of the term digital divide. So if you can elaborate more, would be very interesting.
Australia and some of the countries in Europe I've worked with are all media-saturated societies. We have, so my most recent project that I finished was with 0 to 5s online. And we have begun advising parents not to give their children smartphones or tablets under 5, because what happens, and not to let grandparents do it either. People often give second-hand tablet things to children. But what happens is that if the mother or father has to share their phone with a baby, then they take it back again. There's always a discussion when it's handed over. If a child has a phone or a tablet that they have access to all of the time, then the parent and the child are not talking like they used to. So we have prams that are built in Australia with an iPad slot that you know. So the child is looking at the iPad as it's being wheeled through streets. And I don't know where they came from. I don't know whether we've imported them from the States, but it is ridiculous. And so we are identifying a new issue around what we call baby talk, because parents are not talking to children about things that in the same way. You stand in a bus queue and the parents are looking at their phone and they're only 20 or 21, and the kids are looking at the iPad and they're 1 or 2. And because it's touch and swipe, they can make interesting things happen. So this is a new issue that is arising, but what it's doing is it is changing the way in which we engage with each other, and we don't know the results. We know that children really enjoy it, the very young children really enjoy it, but they don't know what they're missing out on. They don't know that they're losing opportunities for engaged talk. We do know that it doesn't matter how many words a child hears in the very early years of life. The more important thing is how many words are spoken to them. Putting them in front of a television is not the same as having somebody speak to a child. They have to know that they are being engaged with. And because of that, I think we are doing a big social experiment, but we need to tread with caution, and we need to advise parents that they need to look at their own digital media use first and really make the time to spend with their very young children and to speak words to them.
Just to take up on that, because actually Korea, right, is such a highly developed, digitally saturated society as well. So presumably you might be facing these issues where children and parents' lack of interactions or certain behaviors at young ages is starting to be visible with university students. I'm not sure if there's any sort of opinion or observation that you've seen in terms of, how can they interact? Are they interacting differently? Do they tend to be more alone, prefer to be alone, not socialize?
So I want to just say briefly about your earlier comment about the self-regulation and the relationship with the age first. I don't think it has a high correlation between the degree of self-regulation and age. And sorry, but I'm taking my personal example. I have a father close to 80 years old, and he's very addictive to the YouTube now. So I keep reminding him that you have to restrict your time to watch YouTube channels. And I'm keep telling him that there are many YouTube video clips that are not very reliable. So I'm teaching him the literacy, the digital literacy every day, but he cannot control himself. So that's the example that I want to share with you. And going back to your question about the new generation of university students, although my teaching career has been short, I can see the trend is that the students are being more isolated. They are more individual-based. So if you want to have more like collaborative group activities going on campus, It's been very hard because they are not very participating. But on the other hand, they may be very active in online environment. And so you don't really know by looking at this one student sitting in your classroom, she seemed to be very shy and not participating. But on the other hand, she may be a big star in the Instagram. So, so that's the digital identity issue that we may observe in this new generation.
Yes, I think Thailand the same. It's like the student very focused to use the social media. They're really actively. They can post every day, many times. But when we join our class, they just stop and don't. When we ask some question, they not reply, right? So that's why we try to use the digital to encourage them to use with us by use the digital tools. It's like the answer the question or discussion, because we have a platform to use the online system. We can show the discusser who will discuss about something else. And if they have a misconception, we can help. That's why we have to use the digital tool to be our tool to encourage them to study. We cannot stop them to use the social media, right? But if they can use the social media quickly, say the typing, this is a good skill that we can use. We can bring that skill to use in our classroom.
Yeah, thank you for Dr. Nabat and Professor So. Seeing your observations, I think my next question is, what sort of, Dr. Nabat, you already talked about your organization, trying to engage with the students using digital tools. How about at the organizational level? So not so much with the students, but with the educators and with the administrators. Is there something you can share maybe with your experience at Chulalongkorn University, where it's not, where you're trying to tackle also how your colleagues and your faculty deal with this or promote more digital collaboration and learning. So promoting those competencies at that level. Yeah.
And now in Thailand, we will follow up, we call Thailand 4.0. That means we will have a national plan for 20 years, 20-year plan for strategy. This plan, we will focus to develop our children, because our children have to be the new generation for our country. So we will focus to the skill, it's about the coding skill now. Is because a lot of innovation we need to develop by use the coding skill. In the near future, we will add this in the curriculum. And so we will develop a lot of curriculum and training to engage the teacher to use this skill to improve their student too. From the national level, now we also focus and we do on the timeline of our country. That's why if we listen for yesterday, that if we have a policy just only short time, maybe it's very difficult to implement. So that's why we have a long-term plan, but we can review every year, right? So that's why I will tell that our nation also implement about the digital skill, especially in the coding skill now.
Professor So, maybe you can share at your organizational level what measures or some interesting projects that you've undertaken.
So firstly, so I'm also directing a center for excellence in teaching and learning. As one major functions of our center is supporting student development. So we provide quite a number of workshops for students. And you may be surprised that we still have to teach PowerPoint skills. Yeah. And so this is one thing I found very interesting. So we are talking about like coding skills and very high level technical skills, but the demand for how to use PowerPoint is still very high. So that's something that, so there's a very high variation within the group. So you cannot assume that everyone knows how to use PowerPoint, for example, even though they are university students in a pretty good university. Another workshop on high demand is the collaboration skills, like doing a group project. So many universities now, many classes and many instructors are using group project, and we put this emphasis on you have to be very creative and you have to be very collaborative learners. But in fact, if you're looking back, we never learned how to collaborate. We never learned how to be a good collaborator, a good partner. So students are lacking this kind of skills, and so we have to really teach them how to do a group project in a very collaborative manner. So this is something I want to share. Yeah.
Lilia, if I could direct a question to you related to that in terms of collaboration and learning, is for, let's say, Edith Cowan University or in your faculty, are there also similar measures, or is there a need that you've seen in this area?
We do have issues. I was very excited by the keynote this morning. So, for example, I know that one of the big pain points is with group projects that everyone either gets all the same points, or else they try and say, oh, well, but this person didn't do as much, and it creates arguments. I think that the sort of model that we had offered us this morning was a very exciting model that offers a way through it. But whilst we still have a tradition of grading each person and grading each subject, I think there's a real sense in which the structures of education are holding back the new ways of learning. And I think this is an education-wide issue that needs to be looked at. And it is a challenge, and it's a challenge that I think identifies that a lot of what we call education now is not education by or for the world that we have. It's by and for the world that we used to have. And we, as educators, are finding it much more difficult to move on. I think that at the highest levels of university learning, PhD, for example, which is more like an apprenticeship, where the professor and the student support the same outcome together, that is more the way forward. But this idea of self-paced, self-supporting learning groups who do or don't achieve what they set out to do, I think would make a lot of sense from about 13 or 14 onwards. It would be an exciting experiment.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I'm not sure if all of you attended the keynote this morning, but it was a very radical way of thinking that, challenges the formal educational structures that I think we see in all our countries and that we grew up in. So yeah, that was very exciting, but hard to wrap my head around around these how these affect policymakers. I think maybe with the limited time, I would like to move on to just the last issue, a bigger picture issue about how the technology and the digital world is also located in the offline, the real world, so to speak. Where there are issues of the climate emergency, poverty, inequality, and extremism. So what do you see as, what are the main opportunities for young people to use that? And we spoke about it this morning. I think there are some fresh faces in the audience. So perhaps I will start with Lilia, and then the other panelists can also share your thoughts. So. Mainly, what are the opportunities for young people to use technology to effect change in society? And then what role does government play in that, in supporting that? So it's a two-part question. Yeah.
So the example I used this morning was about the climate emergency and the fact that so many young people have been persuaded that if they don't manage to make change in the next 11 years, then it will be too late for them and their generation, that they will be watching the planet die. I mean, I don't know how right they are, but this is one of the things that they believe. 2030 is one of those watersheds that people have collected on. But the important thing that I saw in this, in talking to these young people, some of them, is that they feel powerful and they feel that this has given them energy to act. And so what they are doing is creating their own organizations to make change happen. So we see this with the school strikes, and I think the sensible and the wise thing for schools to do is not to encourage them, but to use it as a teaching moment. And so you say, what are you trying to achieve by going on strike for a day? How are you going to convince the policymakers? What difference will it make? And you try and get them to use their time, both planning up for the strike and also after the strike, to evaluate the impact and so on and so forth. So it becomes part of a whole process. And I think that if we're teaching and promoting digital citizenship, we have to expect that sometimes things are going to come into the school and they're going to take skills from school and apply them in real life. And I think that's something that we want to see. And I also think it's something that the wider society can possibly learn from passionate young people, because they can see things more clearly on some occasions because they are not so taken up with things like mortgages and electricity bills and all those sorts of things, that they can see beyond the disturbances of everyday life to the bigger pictures sometimes.
Yes. The opportunity that we should use in this generation is because our children, they born with the digital native, so we can learn. We stay at the conventional teaching or style, right? We can learn the digital from our children too, and this is an opportunity that we can learn and share together. And the government should encourage teachers to use this skill and transfer the skill to our students. And then we should make the awareness about the cybersecurity too when they use the online system.
Okay, so I was a facilitator of the today's keynote session, and so as you say, it was very radical idea. I mean, some of you attend the session, and then the way he described about learning, there's no teaching. In fact, there's learning, but it's also peer learning, purely. So one keyword that I got from his session is the trust. Yeah, that's the keyword that I got. So many of the policymakers make the policy that shows a message that we don't trust the students or we don't trust the teachers. So there are many policy initiatives that tend to ban the digital actions that are supposed to be the very natural activities of this new generation. So that's something I want to emphasize, that can we think about policy actions that show the message that we trust you, and maybe the culture change after that. So for example, in Korea, there's a very bold movement called free learning semester. I don't know whether you heard about this policy action. And this is a very bold movement because there's one semester or one full academic year in the middle school. The Korean students do not have to take any exam. So exam-free semester. And also they can plan their own learning activities at least half of the day of the curriculum hours. So our curriculum tends to be very centralized. but the government decentralized and give more agency and this trusting message to the students and the teachers and school principals. I think the change has happened, but the issue is how we can trust this, how we can sustain this kind of movement in the future. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. I think that was a great way to end the panel discussion. Due to time, I will have to cut it short now, and maybe we'll have about 5 minutes, to take any of your questions. So thank you very much to the 3 distinguished panelists. If you could give them a round of applause. And any questions from the floor? If not, okay, so I will wrap up the session. And thank you very much. And I think you're due for a 20-minute break. So have a good day. Thank you.